Not my problem.
Don't you need to think these things through?
I have thought it through. I don't want them in the UK. I'm thinking if you didn't actually get to stay in the UK, you wouldn't bother coming.
I thought you weren't in favour of drowning them.
I didn't. I'm not. When have I mentioned drowning people? I've not said. I've not said just leave them in.
Illegal immigration has been one of the biggest issues facing our country for decades. Successive governments, both Labour and Conservative, have promised action, yet here we are, still dealing with the same crisis. And under Keir Starmer's Labour government, things seem to be getting even worse. We already know Labour's approach is weak. Soft policies, minimal enforcement, and absolutely no real plan to fix the situation. But the real question is, do they even want to stop it? In today's video, we're diving into a fiery live TV exchange where a Labour minister is put on the spot, forced to defend their government's stance on illegal immigration. But instead of straight answers, we get deflection, excuses, and a shocking glimpse into Labour's true priorities. If you ever had doubts about where they stand on this issue, this interview will make things crystal clear. So let's break it all down. Watch this clip.
Some of Donald Trump's policies, popular with Americans, popular with an awful lot of Brits as well, like, for instance, declaring a border emergency.
Well, I'm not quite sure what that would involve in the UK. Declaring a border emergency would mean what? Sending the army down to the White Cliffs of Dover.
Well, that would work for me, and I think many of our audience. I mean, we were able to close the borders during lockdowns and COVID. There was a fine even for going to an airport with an intention to get on a flight. For goodness' sake, surely we have the ability. We have an emergency, do we not?
I'm very strongly against that, Julia. I think the consequence would be the degree of lack of freedom for people. I recall the home of common sense being rather against the lockdown restrictions, and yet you appear to want
against law-abiding Brits, yes.
And how would you choose, Julia?
I'm pretty sure we managed to do this quite a lot of the time. I imagine they managed to do it. But as a general rule, people entering the country who don't have a passport and haven't arrived at Dover or at an airport are illegal, in which case it's very easy to find out which ones because they're on a dinghy in the middle of the channel.
Well, what we've taken the view is that we let them in because and I'm in favour of this, we don't let them drown in the channel.
I'm not in favour of letting them drown. I'm saying you can pick them up, but they don't come on shore.
OK, so what would you do, Julia?
I mean, personally, if it was me, I'd pick them up the channel and I would just take them back to French waters.
But French won't have them.
Right, well, the thing is, the French don't have to accept them. We just kind of just take them back. Here you go.
And then what happens to them?
Not my problem.
Don't you need to think these things through?
I have thought it through. I don't want them in the UK. I'm thinking if you didn't actually get to stay in the UK, you wouldn't bother coming. I think that would be a really clear signal. It worked in Australia. If we had the similar sort of policy, it would work here.
I thought you weren't in favour of drowning them.
I didn't. I'm not. When have I mentioned drowning people? I've not said. I've not said just leave them in. We have all these ships in the middle of the channel, and we pick them up, and then we bring them to the UK. The boats are only meant to last halfway, so they can get picked up by the British Navy or the RNLI. What we do is we pick them up, and we take them straight back to France. And if the French don't like it, they can engage with our warships or RNLI if that's what they want to do. I don't think they will.
I have to say, Julia, I think that is about as unthought out a policy as I've heard in a long time.
But allowing tens of thousands of fighting-age men to arrive in our shores, live in hotels and hostels and apartments, on the taxpayer, roaming our streets, that's definitely a thought-through policy.
Well, I have to say, choosing between letting people hover in the channel with nowhere to go, which appears to be your policy.
No, they can stay in France.
Nowhere to go, which appeers to be your policy.
No, they can stay in France.
Well, France won't take them in. You don't seem to be addressing that at all, Julia.
No, I'm not. No, you drop them off on the beach in France.
Julia, sorry to interrupt you. What is your position when the French won't take them back on the boat?
What do you mean they won't take them back? Do you think the French military are going to stand on the Calais beaches?
We're not going to let them in.
Would we let them in? You literally drop them back on the same beach that they just come from.
We're not allowed in to do that.
Not allowed in? Well, I mean, not allowed in to do that. Well, by the French, because they don't want to. No, but what are the French going to do about it? If the French want to go and if the French want to put all their officials all the way along the beaches to stop us dropping, maybe those officials could work at stopping the boats going into the water in the first place. I mean, either way, it works for me.
Anyway, I think we're disagreeing on this. I'm not in favour of that.
No, you're because you're Labour. You're in favour of open borders. What about tariffs?
I think I'm trying to be practical. I thought I was talking to the home of common sense, but I appear to be talking to the home of cakeism here.
Why is it cakeism?
Because it's completely impractical.
I mean, A, it's not. B, let's move on. Tariffs. To get deportation flights off the ground. Donald Trump issued a threat to the Colombians. Now, let's bear in mind, America has a lot more military might, relative power to, American in military and economy versus the Colombians. Basically said, if you won't accept deportation flights to the Colombian government, I'm going to slap 25% tariffs on everything you send to the US starting today. And in a week, they double to 50%. Miraculously, within hours, the Colombian government had, allowed those deportation flights to land. Why don't we make similar threats to countries like Pakistan that won't accept some of their migrants back?
Because I just don't think that is practical either. We are not in favour of a trade warring world, basically. We will have to put up with tariffs which come from the rest of the world as time goes on, but I do not think that would benefit us in the long term.
Well, getting rid of some foreign criminals in some cases, you don't think that would benefit us?
I don't think the problem in relation to, for example, Pakistan is the deportation of those who've been convicted of criminal offences.
I mean, I think girls in Rotherham and Rochdale and Telford might disagree.
Honestly, Julia, if
you don't think they might disagree?
Honestly, if you're, I think we really, really, really need to look into the question of the grooming gangs in the northwest towns. I'm strongly in favour of that. But I'm understanding you to say that the solution to that is tariffs on Pakistan.
No, I'm saying the solution to that is deporting foreign criminals from our shores, which we often can't do because those countries won't accept them back. And we're told, there's nothing we can do. Well, Donald Trump has just shown there is something we could do. Maybe we don't have quite the same economic might to make those threats, but my God, it's worth a try, isn't it?
I think what you're proposing in relation to Pakistan the problem in relation to Pakistan is not the problem in relation to the deportation of Pakistani nationals who've committed crimes here.
Well, lots of other crimes. I was using Pakistan as an example.
But it's a bad example.